Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive right into how top strategists actually filter out the deafening noise of the business world to predict long-term trends. If you've ever wondered how successful companies seem to see the future before it even happens, you are definitely in the right place.
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? How on earth do businesses predict the unpredictable? Over the next few minutes, we'll discover exactly how leading organizations map out the chaotic macro environment to literally future-proof their success. We aren't just talking about guessing here. We're talking about a highly structured method for reading the tea leaves of society.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll navigate the macro environment maze, then break down the PESTLE framework. From there, we'll hit the sociocultural bedrock, see how demographics drive demand, and finally, look at strategic real-world impacts. Let's go. All right, part one, the macro environment maze. So, we really have to understand the arena we're playing in. This macro environment, it's basically a chaotic, unpredictable blend of external factors that absolutely dictate whether a firm survives or fails. Just look at the sheer volume of external forces bearing down on an organization's strategic planning. You've got climate, the economy, technology, political and legal shifts, competition, media, even fashion. It's a total storm of variables. For any strategist looking at this giant web, it can feel incredibly overwhelming to figure out which of these pressures actually matter to their specific business. And that overwhelming feeling leads to a very real danger. Trying to track every single fast-moving trend in that maze creates massive information overload. In the strategy world, we call this paralysis by analysis. It's exactly what happens when planners get so totally bogged down gathering data on every little environmental blip that they actually delay making timely critical decisions. So how do we avoid that paralysis? Well, that brings us to part two, the PESTLE framework. PESTLE is essentially a strategic scanning tool that takes this overwhelming macro environment and categorizes it into manageable, actionable buckets. It neatly breaks the chaos down into political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. Make sense? So instead of just staring at a wall of noise, strategists use this matrix to ask highly specific questions, like what are the current labor laws under legal, or what are the interest rates under economic? It forces management into proactive, structured thinking, letting them spot opportunities and threats without getting totally lost in the weeds. But today, we're zeroing in on one specific area, Section 3, the sociocultural bedrock. As our sources reveal, this social pillar is the true bedrock of long-term, durable business strategy. To really grasp why it's so powerful, we need to contrast it with the economic pillar. Think about economic factors, inflation rates, the stock market, currency exchanges. They're highly volatile, right? Super difficult to predict long-term. But sociocultural factors, they're incredibly slow-moving. We're talking deeply held beliefs, long-term lifestyle trends, and shifting demographics. The economy can literally change overnight, but societal values, they move like tectonic plates. In fact, our strategy texts emphasize that cultural values are deeply ingrained precisely because they are, quote, passed on from one generation to another. That enduring generational nature is exactly what makes these values so foundational. They are highly resistant to those short-term economic hiccups we just talked about. When a society decides it values sustainability, or wellness, or digital connection, that's not a passing quarterly trend. That is a massive generational shift. So the crucial point here is that this social environment actually has two distinct sides. On one hand, you've got the abstract concepts, societal values, changing lifestyle patterns, and consumer beliefs. But on the flip side, you have hard, measurable numbers, population size, age distribution, and literacy rates. Put those together, and you get a highly predictable landscape for any business that's paying attention. Which brings us right to those hard numbers. Part 4. Demographics drive demand. Now, the demographic environment is in constant flux. We're seeing an increasing proportion of elderly citizens, more two-income families, and real shifts in ethnic diversity. And these changes, they have massive localized effects. The source text gives a fantastic example. Imagine a local sports club that used to thrive. Suddenly, it starts to decline, simply because the local neighborhood's demographic has aged. There are just fewer young families and kids around to join. It's that simple, but that impactful. And obviously, this is happening on a global scale too. Look at countries like Japan, France, and the US. We're seeing a dropping youth demographic and a rising average age. People are having fewer children, and thanks to medical advances, we're living a lot longer. This demographic tide is actively forcing businesses to completely adapt. Younger generations just can't support older citizens in the traditional ways anymore. That means entirely new commercial support structures, healthcare services, and elder care tech literally have to be developed from the ground up. So, how does a company actually capitalize on all of this? Welcome to our final phase, Section 5, Strategic Real-World Impacts. Let's consider the broad cultural lifestyle shift toward wellness. This deeply held social value creates massive new demand in one sector, like skyrocketing spending on exercise equipment and health clubs, while at the exact same time, it actively shifts consumer dollars away from things like alcohol and snack foods. It's basically a zero-sum game, and it's driven entirely by a social shift. We see these modern social shifts everywhere today. The rise of dual-career couples has totally spiked the demand for labor-saving appliances, daycare, and time-saving grocery delivery. Or just look at the modern workplace. Post-pandemic, tech firm managers had to radically reevaluate their hiring and training practices because employees now heavily prefer a hybrid work-from-home model. These aren't just HR headaches. These are fundamental shifts in societal attitudes about work and leisure. And guys, when a company successfully rides one of these massive social shifts, the results are absolutely staggering. Just look at this number, 460%. Back in early 2020, as the pandemic rapidly altered societal behavior and health concerns just skyrocketed, Walmart leaned heavily into its supply chain and digital delivery. The result? A 460% explosive growth in average daily downloads of the Walmart grocery app by April of that year. They didn't just survive a crisis, they secured a massive corporate victory by rapidly adapting to a profound social and health shift. So, we've navigated the macro environment maze, applied the PESTLE framework, and seen exactly how the sociocultural bedrock dictates the future, which leaves us with one final thought for you to take away from this explainer today. Look closely at the data. Look at the shifting values around you, and ask yourself what demographic tide is about to reshape your industry. Keep analyzing, and we'll see you next time.